Here's to you, pageant girl. You're a game changer. You're the underdog. You are the trendsetter. You're the one who speaks up for what you believe in. You build others up when so many others have beat them down. You don't back down in the face of adversity. And you have no respect for the haters. Some people love you. Others hate you. There are those who build you up and those who tear you down. Because the one thing they'll never do is define who you are. Because as a group, you are united as one. You hold each other up with strength. And while some may just see you as beauty queens, we see you as leaders. When the lights go out and the crown comes off, you'll always be proud to say, I am a pageant girl.
Hey everybody, this is Shawn Weatherly Harris. I was Miss Universe in 1980, and I'm here with Tim Tialdo to talk about life after the crown.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Life After the Crown podcast, where each episode I bring you useful interviews with former pageant contestants, title holders, and women of influence who are now succeeding across many different industries in the real world. My name is Tim Tialdo, lifestyle entrepreneur, pageant host, author, and quite honestly, somebody who just wants to help you become a better person overall. Now, if pageant life is over for you, or it soon could be, and you're wondering, well, what do I do now? Or what's next? This podcast is designed to help make the transition to real life and the school of hard knocks a little bit easier for you to handle. So if this is your first time listening, thanks for tuning in. We're glad you're with us today. Let's get started.
The first runner-up is Miss Arizona. Miss South Carolina is Miss USA.
That is the legendary Bob Barker announcing Shawn Weatherly as Miss USA 1980. She would go on to win Miss Universe later that year in Seoul, South Korea. And after her duties as Miss Universe were complete, she pursued an acting career and went on to star as Cadet Karen Adams in the film Police Academy 3 Back in Training, and as Jill Riley in the first season of the TV series Baywatch. I think you've all heard of that one. She also starred in various TV series, including Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories, Chicago Hope, 30-Something, and Cold Case. She was also nominated for an Emmy for her work on the NBC series Ocean Quest. She's also published a series of articles chronicling her pageant journey entitled Tales from Beneath the Crown, Confessions of an Ex-Miss Universe. She is happily married to her husband Chip and has 2 kids, Jack and Jesse. Incredibly honored to welcome a royal member of the pageant world to the show today, Shawn Weatherly Harris. Great to have you on.
Oh, thanks for having me, Tim.
Yeah, what an exciting time. So for those of you listening, I know Shawn through the RPM Productions family because, Shawn, you were Paula Miles' very first winner as Miss South Carolina USA back in 1980. I'm sure little did she know that you would go on to win Miss Universe in her very first year of running the pageant. So do me a favor, can you take everybody back in time to 1980 and talk about that whole experience? Because if I recall from what you were telling me, you were a nursing student at that time at Clemson University.
Yeah, I was finishing my 3rd year. I got a call from Paula, and they needed, I think it was 26 or 27 pageant entries to, have an official pageant. And I had already been through the Miss South Carolina that goes to the Miss America, and I had gotten first runner-up. So I thought, well, that my pageant days are over. I really didn't know that much about the Miss USA and Miss Universe. So when she called, I said, I don't think I can do that. I already tried that. It didn't work out. And she said, no, this is a different one. And she told me a little bit about it. And I said, well, at that point, I was a nursing student, and I was really strapped for cash. And I said, well, what do you win? And she goes, well, it's $100. I said, oh, that's good. I was like, 100,000. In 1979, and I said, and oh wow, what else? And she said, a free weekend at Myrtle Beach at a hotel. I said, oh, that's nice, and a piece of luggage, which was cool, and a lifetime membership to a local gym. Mm-hmm. So I said, why not? So I packed up my things and I went to Charleston and won. I just said, wow, this is great, and I went back to school and I didn't really think about the fine print. I didn't really know what it entailed, that in a month it would be, you're going to be in another pageant. And so when the whole thing came up, I found out I needed a really nice dress. I was, wearing a dress that I've been wearing for years in different pageants. And so I heard about a guy named Stephen Yerrick, who has made some beautiful gowns for contestants and winners over the years. So he happened to be about 30 miles from Clemson. So I called him and I said, I really need a nice dress, and I'm supposed to be in the Miss USA, but I don't have any money. Do you have like a layaway plan? Remember the layaway plans where you didn't, there was no credit cards. It was you just they held the thing that you wanted at the store, and you walk in, you gave them $20, $30, whatever you could give them until you pay the whole thing off, and then you walked out with it. And so that's what I was asking Stephen if he would offer, and he said, no, I don't have a layaway plan for my gowns, but come in the store and we'll see what fits, and maybe you can borrow one. And so the dress I wore was actually borrowed, and it was a former Miss World who had given up her title, and it just fit perfect, and it was just, I guess, meant to be. And before I left, he said, let me see if Joe has some time and he'll work on your hair. I said, okay, it could use some work. So I went from kind of this little brownish, dull, ashy hair to blonde. I walked out with looking like Linda from Dallas. I had blonde bangs, and it was really, so I went back to my roommates at Clemson, and we were all in, my roommate was a nursing major like myself, and Ann Steer, and she goes, Shawn, you're going to win. Shawn, you're going to win. And I just laughed, and we laughed. We had a good chuckle, and I didn't think anything about it. It was just fun to, try on this gown and have this cool hairdo. It was just kind of a kick, and it kind of caught me off guard, which I guess is better for me because I tend to be a worrier. If I have too much time to think about something, I'll worry myself right out of a great opportunity. So I'm glad it kind of all hit me pretty quickly. And
so you go on to win Miss USA. You had to not be expecting that, considering, you kind of entered the pageant based upon the things that Paula told you could win for it.
Yeah, no, because I like I say, the pageant that was on my radar was the ones that lead up to the Miss America, the state pageants that you do that. And I had worked for a couple of years doing those kinds of things, prepping for it. And we had in our hometown of Sumter, we had a man named Billy Harris. Ironically, that's my married name. It's so funny. But Billy and Margaret had a funeral home, and they also had a florist, and they ran the local Miss Sumter pageant that's the preliminary to go to the Miss South Carolina. So if you won the Miss Sumter, you would go to the Miss South Carolina that then goes to the Miss America. So he really helped prepare us. Even though it was kind of odd, we were in the funeral home learning how to walk in our bathing suits and high heels. Quite strange. But
I bet.
I have one of my stories is about that very thing. It's like you can't make that stuff up. So he also would have the local teachers, the high school teachers, come in and give us mock interviews. So giving us a chance to try out our answers to different questions and sort of teaching us how to think on our feet. So those kinds of things that Billy did for me were really lifesavers, because by the time I had done all these festivals and pageants, and by the time Paula asked me and I thought everything was, I was done with pageants, I'd had all that, experience, and it was sort of just kind of living in me, and I didn't really have to think too much about it.
So you go to Biloxi, Mississippi, you win Miss USA, and now, you've got Miss Universe in front of you, and it sounds like you probably really had no idea what Miss Universe was going to entail. How did you kind of prepare for that?
At first I thought, wow, this is great. I don't have to take my exams for my junior year. I can hold off until next year, because I hadn't had that. It was nursing, and I was just struggling for my B's. Any B I could get, I was so thankful for. And all the labs and things were, I wasn't being able to get into labs as I had needed to for exams. So I thought, I'll tell my professors and maybe they'll let me postpone it until after. And none of them would let me do it. And they said, well, I don't think you're coming back. So no, you got to do it now. Because what if you don't come back and then you don't get credit for your junior year? And I said, oh no, please, I'm coming back. I'm not going to win. Let me. No. So they made me take the exams, which I really to this day don't even know how well I did. I kind of just never wanted to look back. So, I took the exams. They moved me to New York City, actually, that when I was Miss USA. I traveled for a month as Miss USA and lived in New York City. And then by the time Miss Universe came up, I had a little experience traveling. They had given me quite a bit of help with wardrobe and hair, and my hair had gotten too blonde, so it was a little bit too bleached out. So they said, let's tone that down, let's get rid of the bangs. You don't need to look like Linda from Dallas anymore. You got to represent, Miss USA and the Miss Universes. So they did all that for me. I didn't have to go ask for a dress on loan or ask for, a payment plan. And so I had a lot of support that way.
So explain to me the difference between Miss Universe back then and today. I mean, obviously Miss Universe is a pretty big deal today, but I know back then Miss America at the time I think was really the more prominent pageant system that existed. When you were going into that, what did you think Miss Universe was going to mean if you even did win it?
I just thought it's kind of like the gals who don't have talent going to the Miss Universe. I mean, let's be honest. Because as a Miss America, somebody who's trying to win the Miss America, all you're thinking about is having the best talent and working that thing as hard as you can and just being perfection. And then when I heard this pageant didn't have any talent, I thought, well, what's the point? Well, we have gown, we have swimsuit, and interview. I'm like, yeah, that's the easy stuff. The other thing, you don't have to do the other thing. So at first I thought it was sort of a cop-out, but it was fine with me because it was just, it was still an opportunity. I didn't really care, but I thought of it as being a whole lot easier. But then when I got to the pageant, I met all the girls and I learned about all the stories from all the different countries. I felt myself feeling really grateful it was much more a real world experience versus hammering down one piece of music or one dance. You kind of realized you were in a bigger arena, and it didn't matter so much the talent. It mattered a little bit more about sort of resiliency, the different backgrounds each one had. Like Miss Universe had the Miss Israel, and she was gorgeous. And I said, so what are you doing? What do you do when you go back? She said she was serving 9 months in the military. Different women with different backgrounds. Some women, this was their big opportunity just to give to their family some kind of way of life. And some people were just doing it to help their family. It just was a much bigger experience and bigger than one person. More about sort of the experience of all these women coming from different countries. So I got very humbled, actually. I thought it was a humbling experience and didn't know what in the world I was doing there. I did not feel, they were so exotic. Many of them were just so beautiful beauty I'd never seen before. This is before the internet, before social media, before posting, every perfect person was. So I'm staring at Tilda Flair. I think she was from French Polynesian, and I can't remember the exact name of the country, but there were about 79 countries represented. Yeah. And I enjoyed every single person I met. I got to be good friends with Miss Sweden, who I'm still friends with, and just those kinds of lifetime experiences with people.
So it's one thing to, when you win Miss USA, you've obviously beat out the other 50 states, but it's got to be another to beat out the entire world. When you're standing there and, as you mentioned, you've got 79 countries around you, what is the feeling like when you are announced as Miss Universe?
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I think I remember I said that a million times. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I was shocked, absolutely shocked. I didn't really feel my feet. I was sort of in... It's like did you ever see that movie Talladega Nights?
Oh, yeah.
With Will Ferrell, and he's doing a commercial, and he feels really awkward doing the commercial, and his hands keep coming up. He's saying, I don't know what to do with my hands.
That was you, huh?
That was me. I don't know what to do with my body. Oh my God. I'm numb. It was total shock. And then once it set in, I was just so grateful. I just could not even believe it.
So looking back, why do you think you won?
It was a miracle. It was a gift from God, I think. I mean, just those kinds of things you can't ever really prepare for, or can you really know what it takes to do it? You just do the best you can. And, thinking about all the times that I had been in festivals, and I was in the Miss Great Festival. I was in the Miss Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Festival. I was in the Miss Fidea Onion Festival. These were all these weekend festivals that I did building up to going into the Miss South Carolina that goes to Miss America. So I never missed an opportunity to enter one of those, a lot because I really liked doing it. I really liked being with the girls. I liked kind of learning how to be a woman. I had lost my mother when I was 8, and she died of bone cancer. And I really kind of craved learning how to be a woman. And that was my way of sort of figuring it out. So it was a great study for me, a study of how to grow up and how to carry yourself. And certainly not because I felt like I knew how to. It was more about I was trying to learn how to. And it gave me a way of doing it. So all that stuff, I think that I even won the Miss Tobacco Festival. And I remember standing on bales of hay and the guys who did the guys who do
the auctioneers,
the auctioneers, and then they're auctioning, they're calling out our names and stuff. And to me, that just seemed perfectly normal, walking around in your bathing suit with a bunch of auctioneers in a tobacco barn. Nothing fazed me. Walking in the funeral parlor, in my bathing suit and kind of learning how to just be, comfortable no matter where I was.
Yeah. So as you look back on, the pageant portion of your life, if you will, what is the biggest thing that you think you took away from that you continue to use to this day in your life?
It's kind of just what I do in life as a rule is try to take the focus off of yourself and focus on others, and that kind of takes the nerves out. It's the same in acting, too. I learned from a really great acting coach, and I did it naturally, I think, but I didn't realize that I kind of been trained to do it. Billy had helped me, a lot of, Paula, with everything that she helped us with. She talked about taking the focus off yourself and putting it on the other, giving your attention to the other person, being truly interested in what they are saying, what they have to say, and you automatically are relaxed and you automatically have a connection with people because everybody wants to be seen and understood. I guess most people believe that people that are in pageants are just trying to show off, but I would have to disagree with that because if you're really good at it, if you really learn, how to do your best in it, you're going to have to learn how to be listening to others, how to be empathic, how to be really interested in what the other person says. And I've been a judge in a few pageants before. And the one thing I noticed that was really hard was girls who were very self-conscious, who, would look down at their shoes, who, couldn't stop fiddling with their hair or their nails and stuff. It wasn't because they were self-conscious that you couldn't get to know them. It was because they were working so hard to be okay in the seat that you never could really see them. So the girls that didn't really concentrate on how they looked or how their shirt was tucked in or whatever, and that just sat there and listened to me and looked in my eyes and, just tried to connect with me, those are the people that I remembered. And it didn't even have much to do with how they answered the question because the questions really, people say, what's the right answer, blah, blah, blah. There's really no right answer. The answer is just being absolutely present with the person you're with. And when you're present with them, you might giggle, you might laugh, you might kind of get a little embarrassed and go, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. But it's okay as long as you're really engaging with the person and you're connecting with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. Now, you mentioned that you've judged a few times. Do you still pay attention to the pageants today? Do you watch the big ones on television?
No, I don't. But I've seen, I'll sometimes see a blip here and there. And the first thing I saw that was recently was that they were wearing bikinis. And I was so thankful I didn't have to do that we were still wearing one pieces. We were wearing one pieces. And I remember I had the dress that I borrowed from Stephen Urich, this beautiful flesh tone dress, wasn't see-through or anything. The beautiful beagle beads were sewn all around it. And it was a high neck, long sleeves, but it had a slit up the front of my left leg and went up about, 6-7 inches above my knee. And so in modern times, in comparison to now, it was certainly not risque, but I remember getting a couple of letters that were like hate mails from me wearing that dress that had a slit above my knee. Well, I don't know. It's like, I thought that was really kind of tame given what girls are asked to do now. And I also noticed that man, the dresses are extraordinary. They went from, when I was in the Miss Universe, there were girls that were wearing dresses that looked like somebody's maid of honor dress. They were not these expensive, beautiful couture dresses that they wear now. So it was, in fact, the Miss Sweden, she was fourth runner-up, and her name was Eva, and she had this really bad yellow prom-y-looking dress with poofy sleeves, and it didn't do her justice. And I said, Eva, you cannot wear that dress. I have a white dress. It's really pretty. Try it on, see if it fits. You've got to wear this dress. And she goes, oh, thank you, Shawn. Are you sure? I don't need to wear it, in this beautiful Swedish accent. And I said, you really can't wear that yellow thing. That's bad. It's really bad. And so she wore the white one. It looked gorgeous on her. And she came in fourth runner-up. It was so much more, it wasn't as professional as it is now. Yeah. Sort of the way the Miss Americas were so professional for so long, people just, if you didn't win your state, some girls would move to another state.
Oh, yeah, still do.
Yeah, and so that was intense.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you had to move to New York when you became Miss USA. You lived there for a while, and I actually I was doing a little research and saw a picture of you and President Reagan, so you got to spend some time with him. What was that like?
Oh, he was wonderful. He had just gotten out of the hospital from being shot, that attempt on his life. And we had heard we wanted to bring him a gift or something, and so the Miss Universe company and I were kind of trying to think of what to take him, and I had heard he likes jelly beans, and I love candy, so I brought him a big jar of jelly beans. So I handed him that. He was gracious. It was quick and fast, but really such an honor that after having gone what he'd been through, he would think that this was an important enough thing to do. He has a lot on his plate, and yet to take the time out to meet with us and take pictures with us and just allow us to come into the Oval Office was really an honor.
Well, so after your Miss Universe reign comes to an end, you decide to pursue a career in acting. But, as we mentioned earlier, you were previously studying nursing at Clemson. So what prompted you to make the shift after Miss Universe? I
really didn't want to work in hospitals. My roommate, Ann, was born to be a nurse. She had a Halloween costume that was like Florence Nightingale. So she was born to be a nurse. I knew that wasn't me. I didn't really want to work in hospitals. So I just took what came my way. I got a lot of interviews with different people. I got an interview with the president of NBC Sports at the time. I think his name was Don Allmeyer. And a friend of mine got me an interview, and I was like, oh, great. And I really didn't think too much about it, but I had a boyfriend who was an athlete. And I thought, maybe I could go into sportscasting or something, and that would be kind of fun. And so when I went to meet Don Allmeyer, he said, well, how are you doing? What do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a sportscaster like Phyllis George. And he said, that'll never happen again. Women aren't going to be very, they're not going to have women in sportscasting. It's just not going to happen. And so he really discouraged me. He didn't believe it was going to be a thing, which is fine because it wasn't really something that was on my radar to begin with. But I just thought I had this opportunity. I could say, hey, give me a chance if you want to. So I didn't get an opportunity to sort of be on camera and try my hand at that. He did introduce me to William Morris' agent that got me a couple of interviews with Dick Clark, who was doing some variety shows, and worked with Lynn Swan on one of the variety shows, Shaping Up America or something, Inside America, and I did the sports section.
Okay.
So I got some work doing that, but it wasn't my thing. It wasn't as interesting as I got a couple of auditions for acting jobs, and I never had an acting lesson in my life, but I loved it. It was so much fun. So I kind of thought, wow, if I could do this for a living, this would be a blast. So I just sort of took the interviews as they came, didn't really know how to audition. I think in the first year or two after winning, you're given a lot of grace.
Sure.
People want to meet you, and they want to just kind of see what you're about. And so I think the best thing you can do is really take every opportunity that comes your way and meet with people. I would suggest, however, if you really want to do something and really want to be a sports commentator and you get that opportunity to meet with somebody, be prepared, have a video, have some, and start working on those things that you really want to have happen. So you have something, in your pocket that you have some skill that you can offer. I had skill at being in pageants, but and I just didn't really have any skill in it. Any of the other areas I got an opportunity to work at. I was lucky enough, a lot of people gave me some small acting jobs, and then I got a manager who said, you better take an acting class. You can't act your way out of a paper bag. And I said, okay, you're probably right. So I took some acting classes, and I got better at it, but ironically, when you want something so badly, and this is what I learned about being in pageants too, you sometimes wanting something so badly can really mess up being good at it. The desire to win or the desire to get the part, if that's your main desire, it's pretty likely that it ain't going to happen. The best way, I think, to approach things is to find the fun in it. Find the thing that you enjoy and don't look for the outcome, because even in acting, let's say I remember getting a job and I happened to do a great audition, which was really rare, and they called me back in and they loved the audition, and I'd screw it up the second time, and I'd ask my coach, why can't I go in there and do this? He said, because you're trying to do the same thing you did. But when you first went in there to get the job, what was it you were doing? Oh, I just remember thinking it was such a fun part because I could go in there and I could pretend this person was this gal I hated in high school, and I could really give it to her. So he said, see, remember what you were doing that when you went in? You were going in there to get something done, not to get something. You weren't going in there to get the job. You were going in there to go and tell that high school girlfriend that gave you a hard time just who was on top this time. So it was a great lesson to remember. You know, athletes have the same thing sometimes. You have a great, run at the baseball field. Mike Trout's having a very cold time right now. Mm-hmm. Some of the best go into that slump. And sports psychologists, any kind of psychologist will say you're getting in your head and you're trying to get the result instead of doing the thing because originally the reason you were doing, I love to play baseball. I love to hit the ball. I love to go in there and pretend that I'm speaking to somebody that I have something to say to.
That's super interesting. And, obviously, whatever advice your coach gave you must have taken root, because you went on to, you as we mentioned, you were on some pretty popular shows and movies, Baywatch, Police Academy. So at what point of your early career there did you feel like, I'm kind of a bona fide Hollywood actress?
I never really did. I don't think you do. I don't think you ever really do. You're always trying to get better than you were before. It's kind of like golf. You're competing with yourself. Mm-hmm. It's just always, oh boy, a bad putt, a bad day. Some days you're great in an audition. Some days you're terrible. The actual work itself became easier because I had a skill. I had a technique. The auditions, however, never got easy. And that's always hard if you're trying to get better and better work, is that, that opportunities. It's hard. You get a couple minutes to make a big impression, and it's hard to stay focused. It's easier when you're actually working on the set.
Well, I have to dive into the Baywatch experience because obviously they just re-released that movie last summer. And, in many ways that show changed the culture of television back in the 1990s. So how did you land that gig?
Well, there again, it's not a Hollywood story. The reality is like I said, I was just terrible at auditioning. I get so nervous. And that particular audition, I looked at the script and it was running around the bathing suit. And I had just finished Ocean Quest, which was 5 one-hour shows. It was a docudrama I had done. And I was in a bathing suit for 18 months, and I was pretty much done with getting in the water, and I was just tired. But when this job came up, I went in the audition, didn't do too well. They forgot about me, and I didn't get the job originally. And about a month later, I got a call from the producers, and they said, can you come in? And I said, I already auditioned for that. You said I wasn't right for the part. And I said, no, we hired an actress, but she can't swim. So I said, I can swim. I can't act, but I can swim. So I went in and I thought, well, before I go there, they're going to make me put my bathing suit on. So I'll just wear my bathing suit on underneath my clothes. And that way we'll just get right to the point, because that's what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. They don't really care about how I act. They just want to see me in my bathing suit. So I go in there, I do the audition, and they said, would you mind, putting on your bathing suit? So, the character has to work tomorrow. So I took my clothes off right there in the audition. And then, later I thought, God, do they think it looked like a striptease or something? That was, that was just weird. It was, I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, I took my clothes off and I stood there with my hands on my hips and then said, oh, okay, great. Thank you. So I ran out going, oh my God, what did I just do? I got in my car, and I just didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and outran the wardrobe supervisor. And she said, what size are you? And I said, why? She goes, I think you got the job and I need your size so I can get your bathing suit ready. I went, oh my God. So they called and I worked the next day. So the year was a great year. It was, as jobs go, a dream job. I shouldn't have been so miserable doing it. I think the year of Ocean Quest had given me a little PTSD about being in the ocean. I had swam with sharks. I had been in the Antarctic. I'd done a lot of extreme scuba diving. I think a lot of it was just sort of, I'm done with this. But so I asked to leave after the first year, and they said, well, do you mind how we get rid of your character? And I said, no. So then I found out they were going to get rid of my character by having her get bitten by a white shark. And they happened to use the footage from Ocean Quest that we filmed when we were in the Great Barrier Reef with the white shark.
Oh,
and
no
so
kidding.
they intercut me with the footage that we actually took of the white shark. So I thought that was pretty apropos.
That is pretty cool. So, looking back on it now, everybody thinks Baywatch is this iconic show, but, at that time, you obviously didn't know what it was going to be. Did you think it was going to be a big deal, or you thought it was just going to be just another show?
I was getting pretty disappointed with the scripts. They had told me, this is going to be like sort of 30-something at the beach. I thought it was going to be more story-oriented. That was my wanting desperately to be thought of as serious. I just thought it wasn't going to be very good for being thought of as a serious actress. So, and I also had just gotten married, and I thought, gee, if I get pregnant and I'm running around in this red bathing suit, I think they'll just write me in as a whale instead. So I had a lot of worries in my head. Like I said, I told you, if I have too much time, I'll worry about everything. So I started worrying about all those things that could come true. So I decided I better just ask them to get rid of me. So, and then the show ended up getting canceled by NBC. Mm-hmm. David took it to some European investors who he knew from his music career that he had going pretty well in Germany and parts of Europe. And that's where he got funding to take it to cable. And they lowered the salaries of everybody. We had some pretty big salaries at NBC. And then when they started it back up, the salaries came down, quite a bit, and the production value came down a bit, but that was the way they could get it started back up. So in the long run, I think they ran another 10 years or more. And when you run a series for, I think it's still the same, over 7 years, it's the residuals, and it's a great way of getting continued income for actors. But I wasn't in the next 10 years. My gut tells me they probably wouldn't have kept me on. They changed the characters a lot, and not too many people stayed on for more than just a couple years.
What was it like to work with Hasselhoff? Was he a good guy?
Very nice. He was really nice. I remember as a nursing student at Clemson, used to go by the jock dorm, and they all had their TVs on to some soap opera, and I think it was The Young and the Restless or something. Whatever one he was on, I can't remember. And he played that character Snapper. And so I remember seeing that soap opera, and when I saw him started working with him, all I could think of was Knight Rider and Snapper, and it was very hard to keep a straight face. I had a hard time thinking, oh my God, I remember watching you on this soap opera. And then I never said that to him, but it was pretty surreal.
Well, the role that you mentioned earlier, before Baywatch, the Ocean Quest, that's the one that you were nominated for the Emmy for. It sounds like it was a 5-part series. Talk about kind of how that came about and what you were doing with that.
Well, I just finished a TV series that got canceled called Shaping Up, and it was with Tim Robbins and Leslie Nielsen, and the guys who wrote Taxi were the writers. It got canceled, though, and didn't have a job. So my manager said, there's this documentary, and they want to see if you can swim, and you don't have to scuba dive. They want to get an actress who's never scuba dived before, but you'll go around the world, and it's 5 one-hour shows for NBC, but they'll have a stunt double, and you won't be diving deeper than 60 feet, and you'll only work 5 days a week. I mean, it'll be on SAG. SAG is, it's a union. They protect your hours and things like that, so you would never work as many hours. So I thought it was more like an acting job. So they flew me up to the Bay Area where Al Giddings' studio was, and met him, and I did the scuba test in his pool. He was the underwater photographer for the show, and he also has done Titanic and The Deep and a bunch of National Geographic specials and things. So he was a big producer for underwater film. Met him and went through the whole thing, and I got the job But when I got the job, I started traveling and I realized this was not a SAG. I was not listed as an actor. I was basically as a stunt person. I mean, not stunt person. It wasn't even a union. I was just listed as a regular, worker. So the compensation I got was really bad, and I didn't get residuals. And I worked 7 days a week, and I definitely went lower than 60 feet. There was no stunt doubles. I did 200 feet one time. We went scuba diving under 10 feet of ice in the Antarctic.
Wow.
No, this was not a union job.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
I mean, looking back on it, it's like getting on a bad horse and telling everybody you did it. And I'm glad I did it, but at the time it was really hard. I was a month in McMurdo Station in the Antarctic, gone for 18 months. My dad passed during the time I was traveling. He had an aneurysm, so he wasn't ill. It just happened one day, and flew back for his funeral. And then they said, "Listen, if you don't want to finish anymore, we understand." I said, "No, I want to get back to work. I'm not going to do myself any favors if I sit around and I'm sad about it. There's nothing I can do." So went back to work and finished it. And then the series turned out really, really well. We did all the footage live. They filmed it live. They didn't edit, any drama into it until the very end. The producers said, we need to edit a few things out for liability because there was an incident or two that were a little scary, and they didn't want to have that on TV because it looked like, negligence or something. One of the incidents was, I never would have said anything or done anything. I was fine. Not a person who sues anybody, but so it was an incident. We were in Australia, and we had been chumming for white sharks to get them to come for like 6 days. We finally get them there, and the skipper of the boat has this big cage that it's a cage you go into, and it has these buoys on the side, and it sits about 10 feet below the surface of the ocean once you get in. And then we sit in there and we film the white sharks as they come towards the cage. So the sharks are there and they get us in the cage, but I look up at the cord that is, was supposed to get us up and over the side of the boat and in the water. It's a rope. It's not even metal. And I said to the skipper, I said, Al is about 200 pounds. I'm a little over 100 pounds. We got about 300 pounds of equipment here. I don't think that thing's going to hold us. And he's, "Oh, no, don't worry about it. It's fine. We'll get you over there. Don't worry." This Australian guy. We had our mask on our head. We had no regulators in our mouth. It was behind our back because we were taking pictures for TV Guide before we went in. And the cage door was open because we had we're standing in the middle of the cage door for the picture, and the rope breaks and it goes down. And for about what felt like, 30 minutes, was probably 3 seconds, but we were in the water and I couldn't see anything. I had no goggles on. There was just bubbles everywhere because when we came in, it dissipated all the water, and there was blood everywhere, and I could not see anything. I didn't have a regulator, and I knew there were sharks out there because we've been chumming for them for 6 days. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty scary. They pulled the cage to the side of the boat to close the entrance of it so the shark couldn't get their head in. And then Al found my regulator and put it in my mouth. And then we came to the surface, and they filmed it, but we had to reenact it because the real thing they didn't want to show it.
Well, it sounds like it was probably a little terrifying.
So frightening, and it showed that they should have had a cable that was going to hold us, not, it showed a fault to them. So we reenacted it, and obviously it was not nearly as well acted as when I did it the first time.
Well, that's a super interesting story, though.
No, it's a funny thing because my kids know me as Nervous Nellie. Like, Mom is so scared. She's such a scaredy cat, and she just never does anything. She's not adventurous. But before I had kids, I was pretty much a daredevil. But once you become a mom, you're just, you put bumpers on everybody and you're scared to death. I would like to put my kids in like a hamster bubble. That would make me sleep very, very good at night. But I wasn't always that frightened. I was pretty pretty ballsy when I was younger.
So now that you have spent a good amount of your career in Hollywood, you acted, you did movies and TV shows and a docudrama. For those girls out there today who are, dead set on, I want to move to LA, I want to be in Hollywood, I want to be an actress, do you have some advice for them on, how to go through the process if they choose to do so?
I know this doesn't sound like what you want to hear, but I had a very dear friend of mine who was a very successful actress, and she went to Juilliard, and because she always knew she wanted to be an actress. If you really know that's what you want to be, get trained before you go, I think. But if you're in pageants and you win and then you get opportunities to meet people, then it's a different story. It just depends on what life brings you, I think. I always say, and I tell my kids the same thing, never say no. If somebody wants to meet you and you go, oh my God, I don't know how to be a sports commentator, or I don't know how to do this, it doesn't matter. Go and meet them. This is the other thing I would say is, now that you have Google and Wikipedia and everything, before you go and meet anybody, make sure you know enough about them that you can ask them questions too, so you can be that person that, they see, has an ability to, look outside of themselves and have an interest in other people. Because when I met Don Allmeyer, just having the meeting and him saying, I don't think sports commentating is going to be a thing for women, really. Phyllis George, that's kind of an anomaly. It's not going to happen again. Meeting him helped me get an interview and an agent. He got me an agent with William Morris, and that agent got me auditions for the Dick Clark shows, and those things got me auditions for acting jobs. So just to not worry about thinking too linearly when opportunity comes your way. Just be prepared when they do, and go for it, and take every interview you get. The year right after Miss Universe, when I didn't know what I wanted to do, I got an opportunity to work for a shipping line. It was just a personal appearance contract where I worked 3 or 4 days a month for this shipping line, Mid-Africa. And all they wanted me to do was show up at their big events, and it was a great paying job, and it afforded me the money I needed to travel to LA to take some classes, to fly back and forth to auditions. So it doesn't have to be exactly what you think you should be doing, but if there's opportunity, just take it one day at a time.
Do you ever look back to 1980 and think, what if I didn't take Paula's invitation to be in Miss South Carolina, USA? Where do you think you'd be at today?
Oh my God, I think I'd still be trying to pass my classes in nursing school. It was so hard. I don't know. That's why I say it was a miracle. I was really struggling for, finding what it is that I would love doing. I love helping people, but I did not want to be in a hospital, really. I spent a lot of time in the hospitals with my mom when I was a little kid, and I just couldn't imagine, being in the hospital. And meeting my roommate, Ann Steer, just solidified the fact that I was not meant to be a nurse. So I was in nursing school, but I'm not sure my head was really in it. I was kind of daydreaming a lot.
So now that you've had, a successful career, obviously a very successful pageant career, I'm sure that you have some wisdom that maybe you teach to your kids, maybe you teach to other people. What is it that you've pulled away from all of this, as a kind of a final thought?
Well, I keep that first runner-up certificate that I won a scholarship for when I went into the Miss South Carolina that goes in Miss America. I keep that, reminding myself, and I tell my kids, sometimes not getting something is a stepping stone to something greater. In other words, if I'd won that Miss South Carolina at the time, I don't know what the policy is now, but apparently if you won a state that went to the Miss America, you could not at that time be allowed to be in a state pageant that went to the Miss USA.
That's correct, yes.
So is that still the case?
That is still the case, yeah.
So I told my kids, I said, looking back on, I go, how many times have I not gotten something and been really bummed out because I thought that was the thing I had to have happen for me. And then because that thing didn't happen for me, another opportunity opened up, and I go, oh, thank God, this is even better. I had no idea. Same thing with the Baywatch thing. I was terrible. I didn't get the job to begin with from an audition. And then they called me back in, and I had some friends of mine tell me, why would you go back in? They didn't want you the first time. I said, who cares? I'm not, just being too proud is not a good thing. Nobody's remembering whether you win. My gut tells me they probably didn't even remember they auditioned me. I mean, why would they have called me in?
Sure.
They knew I could swim. That's probably why they called me in. So every time I think of, how we perceive success, I try to remind my kids and anybody who will listen is, you can perceive that one thing is going to be the thing that is going to take you to that level, get you what you want. But, you just don't know. God has bigger plans sometimes than you even have for yourself. And you just don't give up, and don't have too big a chip on your shoulder when you don't get something. Just remember that there could be something even bigger comes around the corner, and stay humble, stay excited, stay passionate, keep getting up one more time.
Sharon, well, some great advice there and some really cool stories. I appreciate you sharing that with all of us today. And look, you, as I mentioned, when we go to, when I host, the Carolinas or Alabama or Louisiana, Shawn Weatherly is a legend in the Miss USA system, and I know you certainly laid the foundation for what a lot of girls tried to live up to over the past 30 years. So thank you so much for sharing your story and just for being an inspiration to so many young girls.
Well, my pleasure. I never thought that would be me, but it's my pleasure, and the experiences that I've had have just, was beyond my wildest dreams. So I think that's something for everybody to remember. You don't even know what God has planned for you, so keep your head up.
Well, appreciate the time today. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. It's a real pleasure, Shawn.
Thanks, Tim. Take care.
That is today's episode. Thanks to Shawn Weatherly Harris for joining me, and thanks for listening to Life After the Crown. Now, if you like what you just heard, we hope you'll share it with your friends. Just tell them to go to lifeafterthecrown.com. And by the way, if you have any questions you'd like answered on one of our future shows, or even a guest that you'd love to hear me interview, just email me at tim@timtialdo.com or Instagram message me at timtialdo. Until next time, remember the words of James 1:2. Consider it a sheer gift, friends, when tests and challenges come at you from all sides. You know that under pressure, your faith life is forced into the open and shows its true colors. So don't try to get out of anything prematurely. Let it do its work so you become mature and well-developed, not deficient in any way. Remember to dream big, set your goals, and start taking action toward them today. See you next week, everybody.